2 days ago, a Boeing 787 plummeted from the skies over India, claiming countless lives and leaving the world in shock. But what most people don't realize is that this disaster wasn't just an accident. On the very same day the crash occurred, one aircraft mechanic during a near-death experience received a message from Jesus Christ. What you're about to hear is not just a story, it is a call to awaken before time runs out. Please do not scroll away. Stay and hear this testimony, for it carries a truth the news will never tell. Subscribe to Eternal Bible Stories to receive daily messages of faith. Leave amen in the comments to join us in praying for the lost souls of this crash and for God's protection over your life. Now, listen to this testimony. My name is Tom, a 45-year-old technical supervisor at Delhi International Airport. My work demands precision, a love for machines, and a constant awareness that one overlooked detail could cost lives. Every bolt, every gauge, holds the weight of human safety. To me, airplanes are not just metal and wires. They are majestic creatures, soaring between earth and sky, and I am their silent guardian. I grew up fascinated by the roar of engines and the grace of flight. As a boy, I'd watch planes take off, imagining their journeys across continents. My job is no accident, it's a calling. I walk the tarmac with pride, my electronic tablet in hand, checking systems with care. Each plane I inspect carries dreams, families, and futures. A single mistake could shatter them all. The airport is my world, alive with the hum of turbines and the rhythm of departures. I know the smell of jet fuel, the feel of steel under my fingers, and the sound of a well-tuned engine. My colleagues rely on me, and I carry that responsibility like a badge. It's not just a job. It's a vow to keep the skies safe. On June 13th, 2025, I prepared to inspect a Boeing 787, a routine task I'd done countless times. I approached the aircraft, my tablet ready, my mind focused. The morning air was crisp, the tarmac bustling with workers. But as I neared the plane's belly, a strange weight pressed against my chest. My breath grew short, sharp pain stabbed my left arm, and cold sweat drenched my forehead. I tried to shake it off, thinking it was fatigue. But the pain spread, a fire in my back, my vision blurring. My legs buckled, and I collapsed, the world spinning. The sky tilted, voices faded, and darkness swallowed me whole. I felt my soul lift weightless, as if torn from my body. A profound silence replaced the airport's noise. I was no longer bound by flesh. A thick, living darkness enveloped me, cold and heavy, reeking of damp earth and decay. It wasn't just absence of light, it was a presence pressing against me, pulling me downward. I sank, my movements sluggish, like wading through molasses. The air grew fouler, a stench of sulfur and rot stinging my senses. Screams echoed, distant at first, then louder, a chorus of anguish that chilled my core. I landed on a ground of glowing coals, each step burning, the heat searing through me. Before me stretched a vast, fiery road, crowded with souls trudging toward a massive gate wreathed in flames. Their faces were blank, eyes hollow, their steps heavy with finality. I tried to turn, to flee, but an unseen force held me. From the shadows, a demon emerged, its body black and twisted, eyes like burning embers. Its voice boomed, accusing me of past sins, shaking the ground. Claws seized me, cold and sharp, dragging me toward a cell. The walls dripped with oily grime, the air thick with despair. I smelled my own fear, mixed with the stench of burning flesh. Time vanished, each moment stretching into eternity. In that cell, I faced my guilt. The isolation was crushing, the silence a judgment. I cried out, my voice weak, pleading for mercy. A light pierced the darkness, pure and radiant, pushing back the heat and despair. An angel stood before me, his form tall, his eyes stern yet kind, his robe shimmering with holy light. He touched me, and the pain eased, my body restored. His voice was calm but firm. You must see more. The truth awaits. I followed, the screams fading, but the weight of that place lingered. I had died for 5 minutes, yet I'd stepped into eternity. Suddenly a vision flashed, the Boeing 787 I was to inspect, now soaring through the sky. It burst into flames, metal twisting, screams filling the air. A voice whispered, "Today." Now, I knew this was no dream. It was a warning of the crash that would shake India that day. The angel led me forward, the darkness still clinging, the stench of sulfur heavy. I saw the plane plummet, debris raining over a familiar landscape. The voice spoke again, clear and urgent. "This is no accident. It is the fruit of human choices." My soul trembled, sensing the depth of this truth. The cell's walls pulsed, alive with malice, the ground hissing with heat. I smelled blood and ash, the air choking me. The angel's light was my only guide, his presence a shield. I knew this crash was a sign, a call to see beyond the wreckage to a deeper, spiritual failure. I saw the plane again, its flames not just fire but a symbol of choices ignored, compromises made. The demons didn't cause the crash, they fed on its chaos, amplifying fear and despair. The angel's voice cut through. "Time for warnings is short. See and speak." I nodded, the vision searing into me, a mission forming. The darkness pressed closer, the screams a constant wail, the stench overwhelming. I moved with the angel, my heart heavy with purpose. The crash was no isolated event. It was a cry from heaven, a warning of what humanity had sown. I had to return, to share this truth, to wake a sleeping world. The angel led me from the cell into a realm beyond words. A radiant light enveloped me, not harsh but alive, pulsing with warmth and purity. It didn't just shine, it embraced me, washing my thoughts, revealing every moment of my life in vivid detail. The air was sweet, scented with blooming flowers, a stark contrast to hell's rancid decay. Before me stood Jesus, not the image from church windows or films. He was a man majestic yet approachable, his presence a blend of authority and tenderness. His eyes, deep and piercing, saw my soul's every corner, yet held no condemnation, only truth that set me free. His robe shimmered, woven of light, his face radiant with a love that pierced my core. He spoke my name, Tom, his voice resonating within me, not through ears but through my entire being. In that instant I knew he was real, the Lord of time and eternity, the Son of God. I'd spent my life ignoring him, chasing work, comfort, routine, yet he had known me, watched me, waited for me. The vision of the Boeing 787 returned, sharper now. I saw it climb, then ignite, flames swallowing its frame, metal shredding in the sky. Screams rose, not just human but spiritual, a wail of chaos and loss. Dark entities moved, their forms like smoke, eyes glowing with malice, thriving in the pain. They didn't touch the plane, didn't spark the fire, but they fed on its aftermath, amplifying fear, sowing despair. Their laughter was a low, guttural rasp, their stench faint but vile, a mix of ash and rot. The air grew heavy, the scent of burning metal and flesh lingering. Jesus' light pushed them back, revealing their powerlessness against him. He spoke, his voice steady, filled with sorrow. "This crash is no accident, Tom. It is the harvest of countless choices." I saw the flames again, not just fire but a symbol of humanity's drift from truth. The entities curled around the wreckage, their forms twisting, feeding on broken hearts, their eyes locked on the grieving. The air around me sweetened, the light brighter, as if heaven was cleansing the horror. I saw the crash site, debris scattered across fields, yet the entities lingered, their presence a weight. Jesus' gaze held me, his eyes urging me to see deeper. The crash was a sign, a warning of a world turning from God. He showed me the choices behind the disaster, rushed inspections, ignored warnings, contracts signed for profit over safety. Each was a thread, woven into tragedy. The entities fed on this, their forms weaving through decisions, their stench subtle but real. Jesus' light exposed them, a truth I had to carry. The air shimmered, the scent of heaven's blooms filling me. I saw workers, their faces blank, unaware of the compromises they made. The entities whispered, urging haste, neglect, their voices soft but deadly. Jesus' voice was clear, urgent. "The time for warnings is ending. You must speak." I stood in his presence, the air alive with peace, the light pulsing with hope. The crash was a cry from heaven, a call to awaken. Jesus' words ignited a purpose in me, heavy but undeniable. The vision lingered, the plane's flames a scar in my mind, the entity's laughter echoing. The ground beneath was smooth, cool, a relief from hell's coals. The air sang with heaven's breath, a fragrance of life. I saw the crash again, its meaning clearer, a world blind to its choices, racing toward ruin. Jesus' presence anchored me, his love a fire that burned away doubt. The entities moved, their forms curling, eyes glinting, but Jesus' light held them at bay. The air was clean, the stench of chaos gone. His voice echoed, a mission to share this truth, to warn a sleeping world. I knew I had to return, to speak, to call others back to him. The vision held, the light steady, the air vibrant with hope. I saw the crash site, its flames a warning, a call to change. Jesus stood unwavering, his presence a shield, his words a charge. The air carried his love, a scent of eternity, urging me to carry this message forward. The light shifted, lifting me above the earth, the world unfolding like a living map. My gaze settled on Washington, D.C., not the city of tourists, but of hidden power. I entered a windowless chamber, its black glass table gleaming under starry light. Men and women sat, their suits crisp, their voices smooth, discussing control, not justice. Their words were calculated, cloaked in terms of security, but their aim was profit, dominance, global order. The air was cold, tinged with the metallic scent of ambition, a faint rot beneath their polished demeanor. Their laughter was hollow, their eyes blind to the lives their choices touched. I saw their decisions ripple, crossing oceans to airports, laws, economies. I saw aviation giants, their leaders signing deals in mirrored rooms, the air heavy with greed. Safety protocols were rewritten, tests rushed, engineers' warnings dismissed. Nations like mine were pressured into contracts, their voices ignored. The scent of ink and leather masked a deeper corruption, a spiritual decay. Jesus appeared beside me, his light a stark contrast to the room's chill. He spoke, his voice heavy with sorrow. "This is Babylon, Tom, a spirit where man bows to power, not God." I saw the threads of their choices, each leading to the Boeing crash, a tapestry of compromise woven over years. The air grew denser, the scent of polished wood and ambition turning sour. I saw the crash again, its flames tied to these rooms, these deals. The leaders laughed, unaware of the cost, their souls blind to the darkness they served. Jesus' light revealed their folly, a truth I had to share. I moved through the vision, seeing airports worldwide, their systems weakened by greed. The air carried a faint stench, not of fuel but of betrayal, subtle yet pervasive. Workers rushed tasks, their choices guided by pressure, not truth. The scent of haste was real, a poison in the system. The entities appeared, smoke-like, their eyes glinting, whispering to leaders, workers, regulators. They urged shortcuts, silence, profit over safety. The air was thick, their stench faint but vile, a mix of ash and decay. Jesus' voice cut through. "Babylon is not one place, Tom. It lives in every heart that chooses wrong." I saw the crash site, debris scattered, lives lost, all tied to these hidden rooms. The air was heavy, the scent of smoke and metal lingering. The entities fed on the chaos, their laughter a low rasp, their forms curling through the wreckage. Jesus' light exposed them, urging me to speak. The vision widened, showing global systems all tainted by Babylon's spirit. The air was dense, the scent of greed pervasive. Leaders signed deals, their hands clean but their hearts stained. Jesus' presence was my anchor, his words a call to expose this truth, to warn a world blind to its path. The rooms faded, but their weight remained. The air cleared, heaven's light returning, but the crash's flames haunted me. I saw the entity's eyes, their whispers echoing, the scent of their influence lingering. Jesus' voice was firm. "Speak this, Tom. The world must turn back." The vision changed, the darkness of power giving way to faint glimmers. Cracks appeared in the world's shadows, small lights shining through, like candles in a storm. These were people, ordinary and unseen, praying, loving God, resisting evil in silence. Their faith was a fire, cutting through the gloom. I saw an old woman in a sparse room, kneeling on a threadbare mat. Her prayers rose, each word a spark, pushing back the darkness around her city. The air was warm, scented with dust and dawn's light, her faith a quiet strength. No one knew her name, yet her words held back heaven's judgment. In a crumbling church, a small group sang, their voices soft but unwavering. The walls were cracked, the roof leaking, yet their song pierced the sky, a spiritual force. The air carried their hope, a clean scent of earth and faith. A father refused a bribe, his face calm, his choice a light in the dark. The air around him was pure, free of greed's taint. A mother read scripture to her sleeping child, her words planting eternal seeds. The room glowed faintly, a sanctuary against the world's chaos. An engineer spoke truth, risking his career, his voice steady. The air was crisp, alive with integrity. Angels stood near these souls, their forms radiant, wings moving with God's will. The scent of heaven, sweet and pure, followed them, a protection against darkness. Jesus spoke, his voice warm yet firm. "These are my army, Tom." Their faith holds back the tide. I saw their lights, small but fierce, in slums, villages and cities. The air was alive with their prayers, a fragrance of hope, pushing back the stench of despair. The vision widened, showing lights across the earth, each a soul standing firm. A faint glow surrounded them, their prayers weaving a spiritual net. The air was clean, the scent of blooms and faith mingling. These were the world's true strength, unseen by most but known to God. I saw my own life, moments I'd dismissed such faith, even mocked it. The air grew heavier, tinged with my regret, but Jesus' light lifted it. His words burned in me, their faithfulness shakes hell's foundations. I knew I had to honor these lights, to join their quiet fight. The vision lingered, the light steady, their glow a promise. The air was sweet, heaven's breath sustaining them. I saw their faces, ordinary yet radiant, their choices a defiance of darkness. Jesus' presence urged me to speak of them, to call others to their light. The ground was soft, cool, a relief from hell's fire. The air sang with their prayers, a chorus of hope rising. I saw communities, united by faith, their lights pushing back the shadows. The scent of life was near, a promise of what could be if the world turned back. Jesus raised his hand, and the vision shifted to a future dark and desolate. Cities stood, but hollow, their streets filled with chaos. Delhi, London, New York, all shadows of their past, the air thick with ash and fear. People wandered, eyes dull, trust shattered, violence a constant pulse. Families were broken, parents and children divided, the air heavy with suspicion. Schools taught lies, packaged as freedom, their halls cold, scentless, devoid of truth. Churches, once sanctuaries, were stages, their air stale, sermons crafted to please, not challenge. The spiritual rot was palpable, a decay beneath the surface. Disasters multiplied, planes fell, storms raged, earthquakes shook stable lands. The air carried smoke and salt, the scent of destruction. Cities drowned, fires consumed homes, diseases spread, yet people turned to screens, not prayers. Apathy reigned, a chilling indifference to the signs. In Washington, a secret council laughed, signing deals in hidden chambers. The air was cold, metallic, their words cloaked in lies. They planned a new order, not for salvation but control, feeding chaos. Jesus spoke, his voice heavy. They built a system to dominate, not save. War erupted, not distant but on Western soil, America's streets red with blood. The air reeked of iron and ash, brother against brother. The sky darkened, a spiritual shadow descending, as if humanity had invited it. The stench of death and despair choked me, a weight I could feel. I saw the Boeing crash again, its flames a prelude to this future. The air was thick, the scent of burning metal and flesh lingering. Dark entities moved, feeding on the chaos, their laughter a low rasp. This was no accident but a harvest of choices, a world turning from God. The vision pressed on, showing riots, hunger, fear. The air was heavy, the scent of smoke and blood pervasive. People accused each other, no one seeking truth. Jesus' presence was my anchor, his light faint but sure. "This is one path, Tom," he said, urging me to see. The ground beneath was cracked, the air stinging with ash and despair. I saw children, lost, taught lies, their eyes empty. The churches stood silent, their air stale, no longer a refuge. The entities whispered, sowing division, their stench faint but vile, a reminder of their power. I felt the weight of this future, its hopelessness crushing. The air was thick, the scent of ruin overwhelming. Jesus' voice cut through, urgent. This can be, but it is not yet. I knew I had to warn, to call the world back before this path became reality. The vision lingered, the darkness heavy, the air choking with loss. I saw the crash again, its flames a warning, a cry from heaven. Jesus stood beside me, his light a hope, his words a mission. I had to speak, to turn souls from this end, to point them to another way. The darkness of ruin dissolved, the air lightening as if a storm had passed, leaving a sky washed clean. The transition was gentle, the bitter scent of ash and blood giving way to a fresh fragrance of earth and blooming flowers. The vision unveiled a transformed earth, a world where humanity had chosen differently, where faith had taken root and borne fruit. Cities stood, not as towering monuments to power, but as humble communities, alive with purpose. Their streets were vibrant, filled with laughter, the air clean, scented with grass and wildflowers, a stark contrast to the desolation I'd just seen. Families gathered in homes, their tables set with simple meals, their voices rising in prayer. Parents taught children truth, not lies, their words planting seeds of integrity and love. The air within these homes was warm, alive with trust, the scent of bread and affection mingling. Children listened, their eyes bright with curiosity, their hearts open to God. The bonds of family were strong, a foundation for a world renewed, the air free of the suspicion that had poisoned the path of ruin. Schools stood, their classrooms bright with natural light, their walls adorned with drawings and words of hope. Teachers spoke of honesty, courage, and faith, their lessons shaping minds to seek truth, not power. The air was crisp, alive with the scent of chalk and learning, a place where young souls grew strong. Students asked questions, their voices eager, their futures untainted by the lies of a fallen world. The halls echoed with laughter, the air vibrant with possibility, a promise of a generation raised in light. Churches overflowed, not with spectators seeking entertainment, but with souls awake, thirsty for God. The air carried their worship, a sweet fragrance of faith, rising like incense to heaven. Pastors preached with passion, their words alive with truth, cutting through the noise of the world. Congregations listened, their faces radiant, their hearts stirred to action. The scent of heaven was near, a peace that settled deep, a reminder of God's presence in their midst. These were not buildings but beacons, their light pushing back the shadows, their air alive with the Spirit. Miracles unfolded, quiet but undeniable. In a modest kitchen, a family prayed over a sick child, their voices soft but sure. The air warmed, a faint glow surrounding them, and the child's fever broke, her smile a testament to God's touch. In a mud hut, a blind man sat with his neighbors, their prayers rising like a song. The air shimmered, and his eyes opened, seeing light for the first time, the room glowing with faith. Families reconciled, their embraces healing old wounds, the air alive with forgiveness, the scent of hope replacing years of bitterness. Leaders gathered not in hidden chambers but in open halls, their hands clean, their hearts humble. They knelt before God, seeking wisdom, their decisions guided by righteousness, not ambition. The air around them was pure, a faint glow of integrity surrounding them, a light that inspired trust. Young people sought God over fame, their voices rising in praise, their lives a rejection of the world's empty promises. The elderly shared testimonies, their words alight, their faces radiant with years of faithfulness. The air was sweet, their stories a fragrance of life, a legacy for those who followed. Jesus spoke, his voice gentle but firm, resonating in the air like a melody. This is my desire, Tom, but it demands repentance. The air was clean, the scent of life returning, a promise of a world healed. People shared their goods, loved their neighbors, lived for truth. The darkness was pushed back, its stench gone, replaced by heaven's breath, a fragrance of hope that filled every corner of this vision. The vision showed airports, now safe, their runways gleaming under clear skies. Workers moved with care, their hands steady, their choices righteous. The air was crisp, the scent of jet fuel clean, no longer tainted by greed or haste. Angels stood near, their forms radiant, their presence a shield for those who chose right. The tarmac was a place of purpose, not compromise, the air alive with integrity, a microcosm of a world renewed. I saw the memory of the Boeing crash, its flames a reminder of what could be avoided. The air was fresh, the earth vibrant with hope, a testament to what faith could build. Jesus' light surrounded me, his words a call to action. This future is possible, Tom. Speak it. The charge ignited a fire in me, a mission to share this hope, to call others to this path. The ground beneath was smooth, cool, a relief from the cracked earth of ruin. The air sang with worship, a chorus of faith rising like a new dawn. The vision widened, showing communities united, their prayers a shield against darkness. Farmers worked fields, their hands calloused but their hearts light, the air scented with soil and growth. Neighbors helped one another, their laughter a melody, the air alive with trust. The stench of chaos was gone, replaced by peace, a fragrance that promised life. I saw faces, radiant with purpose, their choices building a world where God's will reigned. Jesus' presence urged me forward, his love of fire driving me to warn, to call others to this path. The air was vibrant, the light steady, a promise of redemption if humanity would choose it. I saw the crash again, its flames now a call to change, a warning transformed into hope. Jesus stood beside me, his light unwavering, his words a charge to build this future, to turn souls toward God. The vision of redemption faded, the air shifting from the sweet scent of hope to a heavy, quiet stillness. The transition was subtle, like stepping from a meadow into a shadowed hall, the light dimming as a new scene unfolded. I stood at an airport, its runways gleaming under floodlights, its terminals bustling with travelers. On the surface, all was orderly, planes lined up, their engines humming, workers moving with purpose. But beneath, a darkness stirred, like a disease pulsing under healthy skin. The air carried a sour scent, not of jet fuel but of hidden compromise, a subtle rot that betrayed the airport's polished facade. I saw entities, smoke-like but alive, curling through the shadows of hangars and control rooms. Their forms were fluid, shifting like mist, their eyes glinting with a cold, deliberate intent. Their presence was chilling, a weight that pressed against my soul, yet they didn't touch the planes, didn't tamper with parts. Instead, they whispered, their voices soft and insidious, weaving through the minds of workers, urging haste, shortcuts, neglect. The air grew thicker, their stench faint but vile, a mix of ash and decay that lingered like a bad memory. A worker stood beneath a plane, his clipboard in hand, his eyes darting to a clock on the wall. The entity whispered, "Hurry. Skip the check. It's fine." The air around him tainted, his choice a crack in the system, a small betrayal that rippled outward. Another worker, in a control room, ignored a warning light, the scent of greed faint but real, his decision guided by pressure to keep schedules tight. The entities fed on these moments, their laughter a low, grating sound, their forms weaving through decisions like threads in a dark tapestry. The airport's surface gleamed, but its soul was sick, poisoned by 1,000 small compromises. Jesus stood beside me, his light cutting through the gloom, pushing back the sour stench with a faint fragrance of life. "They don't destroy, Tom. They tempt," he said, his voice clear, revealing the truth behind the chaos. I saw the Boeing 787 crash, its flames tied to these moments, rushed inspections in dimly lit hangars, engineers silenced by threats of demotion, contracts signed in sterile offices for profit over safety. The air grew heavier, the scent of metal and smoke rising, a vivid reminder of the lives lost. The entities moved, their forms twisting, their eyes locked on workers, supervisors, regulators. "Cut corners," they whispered. "Save time. No one will know." Each choice seemed minor, a skipped bolt, a falsified log, but together they built disaster, a chain of failures leading to the flames I'd seen. The air was thick, their stench pervasive, a subtle decay that clung to every rushed decision, every ignored warning. I saw maintenance logs, their pages filled with hurried scrawls, signatures forged to meet deadlines. The air carried a metallic tang, the weight of lies pressing against my senses. The entities didn't force these acts, they encouraged, their presence a subtle pressure, their whispers amplitude, human weakness. Workers moved through hangars, their faces blank, unaware of the voices guiding their hands, their choices building toward ruin. The scent of haste was pervasive, a poison that seeped into every corner of the airport. The vision widened, showing regulators in offices, their desks buried under reports they barely read. An entity curled around a man whispering, "Approve it. Don't delay." The air grew stale, the scent of compromise lingering, his signature sealing a flawed system. I saw boardrooms, their tables polished, their occupants laughing as they signed deals that favored profit over lives. The air was cold, the scent of ink and ambition masking a deeper rot, a spiritual decay that tied every choice to the crash. Jesus' voice was steady, cutting through the gloom. "This is the route, Tom. Choices invite darkness." His light revealed the entity's weakness, their dependence on human failure, their powerlessness against truth. The airport's lights flickered, the air cold despite the sun, a facade hiding corruption. I saw the crash again, its debris a warning, the entities circling, feeding on pain. Their stench was faint, a mix of ash and decay, but their influence was real, a force that thrived in the absence of integrity. I felt the weight of this vision, the airport's surface a lie masking a deeper sickness. The air was heavy, the scent of fuel mixed with deceit, a constant reminder of the choices that led here. Workers rushed, their faces weary, blind to the entity's whispers, their decisions a chain I longed to break. Jesus' words burned in me, "Speak this, Tom. Expose the truth." His charge was a fire, a mission to warn, to call for change before more lives were lost. The vision lingered, the airport's stillness a mask, its runways gleaming but its heart tainted. I saw the entity's eyes, their laughter echoing, the air thick with their influence. The crash was no accident but a harvest of countless betrayals, each choice a step toward ruin. Jesus' light guided me, his presence a call to action, urging me to speak, to expose the shadows beneath the tarmac. As the scene began to fade, I knew the next vision would show my return, my mission to carry this truth to a world that needed to hear it. The airport's shadows dissolved, the air shifting from the sour taint of compromise to a sharp, sterile chill. I awoke in a hospital bed, pain crashing through my chest, a fire that anchored me back to my body. The transition was jarring, the spiritual realm giving way to the physical, the scent of antiseptic and bleach overwhelming. Machines beeped, their rhythms erratic, voices shouted in urgency, needles pierced my skin. The doctors said I'd been dead for 5 minutes, my heart still, my body lifeless. But my soul had crossed eternity, carrying visions that burned brighter than the pain, a truth I could not silence. The crash, Jesus, the paths of ruin and redemption they seared my mind, a fire I couldn't quench. Every moment I stayed silent felt like a betrayal, a failure to honor what I'd seen. The hospital room was cold, its walls stark, the air thick with the scent of medicine, but my heart raced with purpose. I had to speak, to share this truth, to wake a world blind to its peril. The weight of my mission settled in me, heavy but clear, a charge from Jesus himself to carry his warning forward. I told my wife first, my words tumbling out in a rush, the crash, the light, Jesus' call. We sat in the hospital room, the air heavy between us, the scent of her perfume faint but familiar. Her eyes widened, fear mixing with doubt, her hands trembling as she listened. She wanted to believe, yet the story stretched beyond her grasp, a truth too vast for a single conversation. The air grew denser, her silence a weight, but I pressed on, my voice steady, the urgency of my mission driving me. She nodded, her face softening, a promise to listen again, to pray, to seek the truth with me. I spoke to my children next, their young faces curious but uncertain, the air in our home warm, with the scent of dinner cooking. I simplified the vision, speaking of heaven's light, of Jesus' love, of a world that needed to change. Their eyes sparkled at the mention of angels, but the crash's flames haunted me, a truth too heavy for their hearts. The air was alive with their innocence, a reminder of why I had to speak, to protect their future, to call others back to God. They hugged me, their small arms a comfort, the scent of their hair grounding me in my mission. My colleagues at the airport were harder to reach, their faces weary, their routines unchanged. I stood in the break room, the air thick with coffee and jet fuel, my words earnest as I spoke of the crash, of the choices that led to it. Some listened, their eyes narrowing, the air lightening as they considered my words. Others shrugged, their laughter sharp, the scent of skepticism lingering. The entity's whispers echoed in my mind, their influence real in every rushed inspection, every ignored warning. I urged them to slow down, to choose truth, the air heavy with their resistance, but I didn't stop. I spoke to my pastor, his office warm with the scent of old books and candle wax. He listened, his face grave, the air alive with his faith. He saw the truth in my eyes, the weight of what I'd seen, and promised to share my story with the church. The air lightened, his words a spark, a promise of a platform to reach more souls. I felt Jesus' presence, his light guiding me, the scent of heaven faint but real, urging me to keep speaking, to trust God with the harvest. I began writing, my hands steady, the air in my study warm with purpose. Every vision, every word from Jesus poured onto the page, a testimony I hoped would awaken others. The scent of ink and paper grounded me, each sentence a step toward my mission. I spoke in homes, churches, schools, my voice carrying the weight of eternity. The air was alive with hope, the faces before me brightening as some heard, their hearts stirred. Others turned away, their eyes cold, the air heavy with their doubt, but I pressed on, knowing my role was to sow, not to force. A video I recorded, simple and raw, spread beyond my expectations, reaching hearts I'd never met. Messages poured in, people saying they'd prayed again, found faith anew, the air in my home lightening with their words. The scent of hope was real, their responses a faint glow pushing back the darkness I'd seen. I wasn't a hero, just a man who'd died and seen truth, called to share it, to call others to the light I'd found. I spoke at my church, the air warm with candlelight, the pews filled with faces both familiar and new. Some wept, their tears a release, the air alive with their repentance. Others doubted, their arms crossed, the scent of skepticism faint but real. A few approached me after, their voices soft, their faith stirred, the air shimmering with their hope. The scent of incense lingered, a reminder of heaven's presence, a promise that God was working through my words. The crash haunted me, its flames a warning etched in my mind. The air carried its memory, the scent of smoke and loss a constant reminder of my mission. I returned to the airport, its tarmac familiar, the air heavy with routine. I spoke to workers, my words earnest, the crash a truth they couldn't ignore. Some listened, their faces softening, the air lighter with their resolve. Others dismissed me, their choices a weight I couldn't lift, but I kept speaking, trusting God to move their hearts. Every day I felt the urgency, the air alive with purpose. The world stood at a crossroads, the crash a cry to awaken. I wasn't a prophet, just a man who'd seen eternity, called to warn, to point others to Jesus. The air was clean, my mission clear, a fire that drove me forward. As I prepared to share my story wider, I knew the next step was to call the world to action, to urge them to choose the path of redemption before it was too late. Time is fleeting, the world balancing on a razor's edge. The Boeing 787 crash was no accident, but a sign, a scar on the Earth's soul. I've seen the paths, one to ruin, one to hope. The air carries this truth, a faint scent of urgency, calling all to choose. I'm no prophet, no hero. I'm Tom, a man who died for 5 minutes and saw the world's heart failing. But there's hope in prayers, in faith, in choices made for God. The air is alive with possibility, the scent of heaven's promise lingering. Don't wait for another crash, another sign. The air is heavy with warnings, the time to act now. Choose truth, turn to God, let His light guide you. The scent of hope is near, ready to replace despair if you'll take it. Write your nation in the comments, let us pray for your land. Subscribe to Eternal Bible Stories, share this with 3 souls you love. The air carries your choice, a chance to spark awakening. May God guide you, His light your path, now and forever. Tom's testimony pierces the heart. A mechanic, tasked with guarding the skies, died and glimpsed the truth behind a tragedy. This isn't just about a plane crash, it's about a world at a turning point. Are we choosing light or darkness? God used Tom to warn us, to call us back to Him. Share this story, reflect and seek Jesus. Subscribe to Eternal Bible Stories for more testimonies that stir the soul. Another vision awaits, one to deepen your faith and challenge your path. In recent days, the world has stood still, stunned by a disaster that defies explanation. On a quiet Wednesday in Ahmedabad, India, Air India flight I-171, carrying 298 lives, students, doctors, grandparents, children, crashed seconds after takeoff, slamming into B Medical College's dormitory. In an instant, a routine day of study, travel, and farewells turned into a nightmare of fire and devastation, leaving families shattered and the world in shock. Investigators are scouring the wreckage, promising answers, perhaps a mechanical fault or human error, to quell our need for clarity. But is that the full truth? Can such a tragedy be reduced to technical failures? For those who sense a deeper reality, the question runs deeper. Ravi Patel, a 24-year-old medical student and crash victim, died for 9 minutes and returned with a chilling message. He claims he met Jesus Christ, who revealed hidden forces behind the disaster, forces no report can uncover. Ravi's raw, urgent testimony is not just for India. It's a global wake-up call, warning that our spiritual foundations are crumbling. His story, unfiltered and profound, challenges us to look beyond the surface and act before it's too late. Before we begin, take a moment to like this video so this message can reach more people who need to hear it. Leave a comment below with your location and a short prayer. Lord, please bring peace to my family. And don't hesitate to share your thoughts. What do you believe is behind this horrifying disaster? Your voice matters. Your prayer matters. Now, let's listen to what Ravi experienced. My name is Ravi Patel. I am 24 years old, a final-year medical student at BJ Medical College in Ahmedabad, Gujarat. I never imagined I would be writing these words, let alone living through the events that compel me to share them. My life was unremarkable, a tapestry of long study hours, sleepless nights cramming for exams, and quiet dreams of becoming a surgeon who could make a difference in my community. I was just another student, navigating the pressures of medical school, balancing ambition with exhaustion, and finding solace in small moments of joy with my friends. But on that fateful Wednesday, everything I knew was shattered, and I was thrust into a reality I could never have imagined. It was a rare day, one where the relentless schedule of medical school granted me a reprieve, no afternoon classes, a precious pocket of time to breathe. My roommate, Samir, and I decided to make the most of it, indulging in a leisurely lunch in our dormitory, room 318, on the 3rd floor of the left corridor. Our room was a chaotic haven, cluttered with dog-eared textbooks, stacks of empty coffee cups, and faded posters of cricket stars taped to the walls. It was our sanctuary, a place where we could shed the weight of our studies and just be ourselves, if only for a few hours. We had scavenged some chicken curry from the mess hall's leftovers, its spicy aroma filling the room as we heated it in our ancient microwave, which hummed and rattled like an old friend. I made a quick trip downstairs to the communal rice dispenser, scooping out portions that carried the faint metallic tang of the machine, but tasted like comfort nonetheless. We settled on the floor, plates balanced precariously on our knees, the open window letting in a warm Ahmedabad breeze, heavy with the scent of jasmine from the campus gardens. Outside, the hospital next door pulsed with its usual rhythm, ambulances arriving with their siren gunters blaring, doctors hurrying through the corridors, patients waiting in long queues under the midday sun. It was the heartbeat of our world, chaotic yet familiar, a reminder of the lives we were training to save. Samir and I were in the middle of a lively debate, our voices overlapping as we laughed about our recent dissection lab. I was teasing him about his shaky hands, how he'd nearly botched a delicate incision, when he fired back with a joke about my obsessive note-taking. The banter was easy, the kind that comes from years of shared struggles and late-night study sessions. I took a bite of curry, savoring the heat on my tongue, when a sound pierced the air, a sound unlike anything I'd ever heard. It wasn't just loud, it was primal, a roar that seemed to rise from the depths of the earth, shaking the walls and vibrating through the floor. My plate rattled on my lap, rice spilling onto the tiles. "What the hell is that?" Samir muttered, his eyes wide with confusion. I stood, drawn to the window, my heart pounding in my chest. What I saw froze my blood. An Air India plane, its sleek fuselage unmistakable, was flying impossibly low, its wings tilted at a sickening angle. It was so close I could see the rivets on its underbelly, the logo on its tail glinting in the sunlight. It barely cleared the hospital's rooftop, its engines screaming in protest, a sound of mechanical agony that told me something was terribly wrong. The plane wobbled, as if fighting to stay aloft, but it was losing the battle. "Ravi, move!" Samir's shout snapped me out of my trance, his voice laced with panic. But I was rooted to the spot, my mind struggling to process the surreal sight. Before I could react, the world exploded. A blinding flash of fire consumed the window, followed by a concussive wave that tore through the brick wall like it was tissue paper. The force slammed me backward, my body crashing into the far wall, with a sickening thud that drove the air from my lungs. Glass shattered, metal groaned, and the air filled with the acrid stench of burning fuel and scorched earth. My vision blurred, the room spinning in a kaleidoscope of flames and debris. I saw Samir's body crumpled in the corner, blood pooling beneath him, his face frozen in shock. Then, darkness swallowed me whole. I felt no pain, no fear, just nothing. I was floating, weightless, above the wreckage of our room. Below, my body lay twisted among the rubble, one hand still clutching the spoon I'd been holding, now bent and blackened. Paramedics and students rushed in, their voices distant and hollow, calling my name with desperate urgency. I wanted to answer, to tell them I was still here, but I couldn't form the words. Stranger still, I didn't want to. A profound peace enveloped me, a calm that defied the chaos below, pulling me away from the world I'd known and into a realm I could not yet comprehend. I drifted in a void, untethered from the constraints of time and space. The sounds of fire, screams, and collapsing walls faded into an eerie silence, as if the world itself had fallen away. There was no fear, no regret, no clinging to the life I'd left behind, only an overwhelming sense of calm, as if every burden I'd ever carried had been gently lifted from my shoulders. I was weightless, formless, yet more alive than I'd ever been, suspended in a realm where the rules of the physical world held no sway. Then I saw it, a light, radiant and alive, unlike anything I'd ever encountered. It wasn't harsh or blinding like the sun, it was warm, pulsating with an intelligence that seemed to know me intimately. Every thought I'd ever had, every fear I'd buried, every secret I'd hidden from the world was laid bare before this light, yet I felt no shame, no judgment, only an unconditional acceptance that wrapped around me like a mother's embrace. The light wasn't just illumination, it was aware, a presence that saw me completely and loved me without reservation. I knew, with absolute certainty, that I was dead. My body was gone, left behind in the wreckage of room 318, yet I felt more whole, more real than I ever had in life. As I lingered in this radiant void, a presence emerged, vast, infinite, yet intensely personal. It was Jesus Christ. I had grown up in a Hindu family, my knowledge of Christianity limited to fleeting mentions in school textbooks or casual conversations with Christian classmates. I'd attended a few church services with friends, more out of curiosity than conviction, but I'd never given much thought to Jesus beyond acknowledging him as a historical figure. Yet in that moment I had no doubt. This was him. His form was both familiar and indescribable, a figure of light and substance, radiating power and tenderness in equal measure. His face held the majesty of creation itself, yet it was etched with a compassion that felt deeply human. His eyes were the most striking. They held the weight of eternity, galaxies swirling within them. Yet when they met mine, I felt singularly seen, as if I were the only soul in existence. Every moment of my life, every triumph, every failure, every quiet act of kindness, every selfish thought was known to him, laid bare like an open book, yet his love never wavered. He spoke, not with physical words, but with thoughts that surged through my consciousness like waves of electricity, carrying truths no human language could fully contain. His voice was both gentle and commanding, resonating deep within my soul. "Ravi," he said, his words piercing me with their intimacy, "you have been brought here to see. You must witness what I will show you and speak it to the world, even if they turn against you." I trembled, not from fear but from the weight of his command. I was a nobody, a medical student from Ahmedabad, not a prophet, not a priest, not even a particularly devout person. Why me? What could I possibly offer? The questions swirled in my mind, but his eyes held no room for doubt. They were steady, unwavering, filled with a purpose that silenced my insecurities. I nodded, though I had no physical form to nod with, a silent agreement to carry out his will, whatever it might cost me. The light around us shifted, as if preparing to unveil a truth I was not ready to bear. I felt a pull, a sense of movement, though I wasn't moving in any physical sense. It was as if the fabric of reality itself was unfolding, revealing layers of existence I'd never imagined. Jesus' presence remained constant, a steady anchor in this uncharted realm, guiding me toward a revelation that would change me forever. The void transformed, and I found myself gazing down at Ahmedabad from an impossible vantage point. The city sprawled below like a living, breathing map, every detail vivid and sharp, the winding streets, the bustling markets, the Sabarmati River glinting like a silver ribbon under the midday sun. My focus was drawn to the wreckage of the BJ Medical College dormitory, now a smoldering ruin of twisted steel, shattered concrete, and lives forever altered. The air was thick with the stench of burning fuel, the ground scarred with the impact of the plane's descent. It was a scene of unimaginable devastation, a wound on the earth that mirrored the pain in my heart. As I looked closer, guided by Jesus' presence, I saw something that made my soul recoil. Hundreds of translucent forms, souls hovered above the debris, their faces etched with confusion, fear, and sorrow. They were the passengers of Flight I-171, the students in the dormitory, the lives snuffed out in that brutal moment. They weren't at peace, they were trapped, tethered to the tragedy, in a liminal state, unable to move on to whatever lay beyond. Their presence was a silent cry, a plea for release that echoed in the stillness of this spiritual realm. Among the rubble, I saw something else, shadowy entities, formless yet unmistakably sentient, slithering through the wreckage like parasites feeding on the chaos. They had no horns, no fangs, no features that matched the demons of folklore, but their presence filled me with a primal dread. They were living shadows, their movements deliberate and predatory, as if drawn to the despair and suffering that permeated the site. They weren't attacking the souls directly, but their influence was palpable, a dark weight that seemed to hold the souls in place, preventing them from finding rest. Jesus directed my gaze to these entities, his voice steady but heavy with truth. "They did not cause the crash," he said, his words cutting through my fear, "but they shaped the path that led to it." The scene shifted, and I was shown flashes of human decisions, each a thread in the tapestry of the disaster. I saw overworked mechanics in a hangar, their eyes bleary from exhaustion, skipping critical safety checks to meet impossible deadlines set by indifferent supervisors. I saw executives in air-conditioned offices, their pens signing off on reduced maintenance budgets to boost profits, their decisions rippling outward to seal the plane's fate. I saw pilots in the cockpit, distracted by fatigue and personal worries, missing subtle warning lights that could have averted catastrophe. These forces, Jesus explained, his voice carrying both sorrow and resolve, exploit humanity's weaknesses, greed, negligence, pride, apathy. They do not need to sabotage the plane themselves, they simply amplify the darkness already present in human hearts. They thrive where my light is absent, where people place themselves above me, above truth, above love. The crash was no mere accident, no isolated failure of technology or human error. It was a symptom of a deeper spiritual decay, a world where systems meant to protect life had been eroded by corruption, complacency, and a refusal to acknowledge the divine. The shadowy entities didn't act alone, they were opportunists, feeding on humanity's drift from God, creating conditions where tragedy was not just possible but inevitable. I saw how this pattern extended beyond the crash, touching every corner of the world, hospitals underfunded, governments mired in self-interest, communities fractured by division. The plane crash was a microcosm, a warning of what happens when humanity turns its back on the light. Jesus showed me the broader implications, his vision expanding to reveal a world teetering on the edge. "This is not just India's story," he said. "It is humanity's story. The same forces that led to this tragedy are at work everywhere, exploiting every crack in the spiritual foundation of your world. But there is still time to choose a different path." The vision shifted, and Jesus presented me with two paths for humanity, each vivid and undeniable. The first path was a continuation of the world's current trajectory, a descent into indifference, where people ignored the spiritual roots of their problems, placing their faith in technology, wealth, and human ingenuity. The scene was terrifying, a cascade of disasters unfolding across the globe. I saw plane crashes, wildfires raging unchecked, floods swallowing entire cities, and societal collapse driven by fear and division. These weren't random events. They were physical manifestations of a spiritual battle, where the shadowy entities grew stronger, their influence spreading like a plague. The disasters defied explanation, overwhelming even the most advanced human efforts to contain them. Firefighting techniques failed against flames that seemed to burn with unnatural intensity. Engineering marvels crumbled under storms that struck with precision. Governments issued statements, scientists scrambled for answers, but their solutions were bandages on a wound that required a deeper healing. If this path is chosen, Jesus warned, his voice heavy with urgency, the consequences will multiply, and no human effort will be enough to stem the tide. The world will face trials unlike any in its history, not because I desire it, but because humanity has chosen to walk away from me. The second path was radiant with hope, a vision of what could be if humanity turned back to God. I saw communities across the world awakening, their prayers rising like beacons of light that pierced the darkness. Families gathered in homes, not for mindless entertainment but for heartfelt worship, their voices joined in sincerity. Churches, once hollow with routine, became sanctuaries of genuine faith, their doors open day and night for those seeking truth. Individuals turned away from toxic influences, endless streams of divisive media, ideologies that pitted neighbor against neighbor, and sought the divine with open hearts. In these places, the spiritual atmosphere shifted dramatically. The shadowy entities I'd seen in Ahmedabad weakened, unable to penetrate the shields created by sincere faith and collective prayer. Disasters still occurred. Humanity was not immune to the challenges of a fallen world, but their impact was softened, their spread contained. Communities that prayed together recovered faster, their bonds strengthened by shared purpose. Governments found their efforts more effective when guided by humility and wisdom rather than pride. Scientists discovered solutions that worked in harmony with the natural world, as if the divine was guiding their hands. The change does not begin with leaders or systems, Jesus said, his voice filled with both compassion and conviction. It begins in the hearts of my people. A single prayer, offered in truth, can shift the spiritual tide. A single heart, fully surrendered to me, can protect a family, a village, a city. When my people come together in unity, their light becomes a fortress that the enemy cannot breach. I saw how this renewal rippled outward, starting small but growing with exponential power. A mother praying with her children at bedtime created a shield around her home. A small church holding nightly worship services became a beacon for its town. A community uniting to support those in need, sharing food, offering shelter, listening with love, transformed the spiritual landscape, making it inhospitable to the forces that thrived on division. The vision was not utopian, it was practical, grounded in the choices each person could make every day. The vision narrowed, focusing on a land far from the smoldering ruins of Ahmedabad, the United States of America. I saw its cities, their skylines gleaming with ambition, its vast landscapes, from rolling plains to towering mountains, its people, diverse and driven, each carrying their own hopes and struggles. But beneath the surface I saw cracks in the nation's spiritual foundation, deeper and more perilous than I could have imagined. The light that once shone brightly across the land was flickering, threatened by a growing darkness. America must take heed, Jesus said, his voice heavy with urgency and sorrow. It has been blessed with great light, freedom, prosperity, the ability to spread my truth to the world. But it teeters on the edge of darkness, its heart divided and its faith waning. He showed me a nation where faith had once been a cornerstone, a source of strength through trials. I saw churches filled with fervent prayer, their pews packed with families seeking God together. I saw communities united by shared belief, neighbors helping neighbors, strangers becoming friends through their common devotion. But over generations, that light had dimmed. Materialism had taken root, turning hearts toward wealth and comfort rather than purpose and sacrifice. Division had fractured communities, with anger and fear drowning out compassion. Spiritual apathy had crept in, even among those who called themselves believers, their faith reduced to rituals without meaning, Sunday services without transformation. The shadowy entities I'd seen in Ahmedabad were active here, too, their influence subtler but no less dangerous. They whispered lies that fueled the nation's struggles, lies that God was irrelevant, that truth was subjective, that personal gain trumped collective good. They didn't need to cause disasters directly, they simply amplified the pride, greed, and division already present, creating conditions where crises could flourish. I saw wildfires raging across forests, their flames unnaturally fierce, defying containment. I saw storms battering coastlines, their destruction relentless, as if driven by more than nature. I saw societal unrest, cities divided by hatred, where dialogue gave way to violence. America's strength, its innovation, its freedom, its confidence, has become its weakness, Jesus explained. It trusts in itself, in its systems, in its achievements, rather than in me. If it does not return to me with its whole heart, its trials will mirror this tragedy and surpass it. The disasters you see are warnings, calls to awaken before it is too late. But the vision wasn't without hope. I saw pockets of light across the nation, places where people were turning back to God. Small churches held prayer vigils, their members fasting and seeking truth together. Families turned off their screens, gathering to read scripture and pray, their homes glowing with spiritual warmth. Communities came together, not for protests or politics, but to serve one another, feeding the hungry, sheltering the homeless, listening to the brokenhearted. These acts, Jesus showed me, were powerful, creating spiritual strongholds that the shadowy entities could not penetrate. In these places, disasters were less devastating, recovery was swifter, and hope endured. America has a choice, Jesus said, his voice both a warning and an invitation. Return to me, humble yourselves, and I will heal your land. Or continue in pride, and the consequences will be your own. The time for indecision is over. As the visions faded, Jesus turned to me, his presence more intimate than ever. His eyes held both infinite love and unrelenting urgency, as if the weight of eternity rested on this moment. Time is short, Ravi, he said, his voice piercing my soul. You have seen what I have shown you. Now you must speak it, though many will mock you, doubt you, even hate you for it. Do not fear their rejection. I will be with you, and I will work through you to reach those whose hearts are ready. I wanted to protest, to tell him I wasn't strong enough, wasn't worthy, wasn't prepared for such a task. I was just a medical student, not a preacher or a leader. But his gaze silenced my doubts, filling me with a courage I didn't know I possessed. Those who have ears, let them hear, he said, his words a final command, a charge that burned into my being. Those who have hearts, let them decide. Go, and do not look back. The light began to fade, and I felt a pull, as if an invisible thread was drawing me back to my body. The radiant void dissolved, replaced by the sterile hum of machines and the sharp scent of antiseptic. I gasped, my chest heaving, as my eyes fluttered open in the IQ of Ahmedabad's civil hospital. Doctors and nurses surrounded me, their faces a mix of shock, relief, and disbelief. He's back. Someone shouted, their voice trembling with emotion. Machines beeped frantically, recording the miracle of my return. They told me I'd been clinically dead for 9 minutes. My heart stopped in the aftermath of the crash. By all medical logic, I should have suffered severe brain damage from the lack of oxygen if I survived at all. Yet my mind was clearer than ever, every detail of my encounter with Jesus etched into my memory with vivid precision. The doctors called it a miracle, their voices hushed with awe, but I knew it was more than that. It was a mission, a purpose I could not ignore. The hospital was a scene of unimaginable sorrow. The crash had claimed so many lives, my classmates, my friends, Samir among them. The grief was a weight that threatened to crush me, a constant ache that made every breath feel heavy. I saw their faces in my dreams, heard their laughter in quiet moments, and wept for the futures they would never live. Yet Jesus' words gave me strength, a reason to keep going despite the pain. I shared my story with a local priest, Father Thomas, who visited me in the hospital. He listened patiently, his weathered face kind but skeptical, his eyes searching mine for signs of delusion or trauma. "Ravi," he said gently, "you've been through a terrible ordeal. The mind can play tricks after such an experience." I didn't blame him for his doubt. My words sounded like madness, even to me, but the truth burned within me, undeniable and urgent. I couldn't stay silent, not when Jesus had commanded me to speak. I began writing, my hands trembling as I poured my experience onto the page. Every word felt like a step of faith, a defiance of the fear that whispered I'd be ridiculed, dismissed, or worse. I wrote for the families who lost loved ones, for the survivors grappling with guilt, for the world that needed to hear the warning before it was too late. I wrote not for fame or validation, but because I had no choice. This was my calling, my burden, my privilege. You don't have to believe me. I'm not asking for your trust or your agreement. I'm just a medical student from Ahmedabad, a nobody with a story that sounds impossible. But I know what I saw, what I felt, what I was told. And I know this: the world is at a crossroads. The forces that led to the Air India crash are at work everywhere, exploiting our weaknesses, waiting for us to falter. The next tragedy is coming, whether it's a plane crash, a fire, a flood, or something we can't yet imagine, unless we choose a different path. Jesus showed me that it's not too late. We can turn back, we can pray and love, we can rebuild the spiritual foundations of our world. It starts with you, with me, with every heart that hears and decides. When the next disaster strikes, and it will, if we do not change, you will remember these words. The choice is yours. The time is now. To you who are reading or hearing my story, I speak not as a preacher or a saint, but as a fellow traveler, a 24-year-old medical student who stood at the edge of eternity and was sent back with a purpose. My name is Ravi Patel, and the 9 minutes my heart stopped during the Air India flight I-171 crash were the most real moments of my life. In that time I stood before Jesus Christ, bathed in his light, and saw truths that have shattered my understanding of the world. This message is for you, whether you believe in God, question his existence, or have never given it a thought. It's for the weary, the hopeful, the broken, and the seeking, because what I was shown is not just my burden to carry, but a call for all of us to answer. I know my story sounds impossible. A Hindu boy from Ahmedabad, raised on science and textbooks, claiming to have met Jesus. I would have doubted it myself a month ago. But the love in his eyes, the weight of his words, the visions he showed me, they are more vivid than the hospital bed I woke in, more certain than the grief I carry for my friends who didn't survive. He showed me the crash was no mere accident, but a symptom of a world drifting from truth, where greed, pride, and apathy opened doors for darkness to creep in. He showed me shadowy forces that exploit our choices, not to cause disasters directly, but to nudge us toward them by amplifying our worst impulses. And he showed me hope, a path where our prayers, our love, our surrender to something greater can rebuild what has been broken. This isn't about religion as I once understood it, rituals, rules, or empty traditions. It's about a living relationship with the one who knows you better than you know yourself. Jesus didn't ask me to convert or to preach a doctrine. He asked me to share a warning and an invitation. The warning is this: time is short. The forces that led to the crash are at work everywhere, in our homes, our cities, our hearts. If we continue to trust in ourselves alone, to chase comfort over truth, to divide instead of unite, the tragedies will multiply. Not because God is cruel, but because we've chosen a path that leads to ruin. The invitation is simpler, yet harder: turn back. Pray, not as a performance, but with a heart that's honest, even if it's hurting. Love your neighbor, not just with words, but with actions, sharing a meal, listening to their pain, standing with them in their struggles. Surrender your pride, your need to control, and ask for guidance from the one who sees what we cannot. These acts, small as they seem, are powerful. They create light that pushes back the darkness, shields that protect our world from the forces that seek to tear it apart. I saw it in his vision, families praying together, communities serving one another, individuals choosing faith over fear. Each choice is a stone in a fortress, a step toward healing. You don't need to be perfect. I'm not. I'm still wrestling with grief, with doubt, with the weight of this calling. But I've learned this: you don't need all the answers to start. You just need to decide. Will you keep walking the path you're on, hoping the world will fix itself? Or will you take a step, however small, toward the light? Jesus said, "Those who have ears, let them hear. Those who have hearts, let them decide." That's my message to you. Hear it. Decide. I don't know what tomorrow holds. I don't know if you'll face a tragedy like the one that took my friends, or if your trials will be quieter, hidden in the struggles of daily life. But I know this: the world is watching, waiting for us to choose. When the next disaster comes, and it will, if we don't change, you'll remember these words. Not because I'm special, but because they're true. So please don't wait. Pray. Love. Choose light. The time is now, and the choice is yours. As we bring this account of Ravi Patel's extraordinary near-death experience to a close, we stand in awe of the profound truths he has shared, truths that transcend borders, faiths, and cultures. His encounter with Jesus Christ, his glimpse into the spiritual forces at play behind the Air India flight I-171 tragedy, and his urgent call to humanity to return to a life of faith and love are not merely a personal testimony. They are a beacon for a world teetering on the edge of spiritual crisis. The crash that claimed 298 lives in Ahmedabad was a stark reminder of our fragility, a wound that continues to ache on the hearts of families, friends, and communities. Yet within this sorrow, Ravi's vision offers a glimmer of hope, a path forward, if we choose to walk it. This tragedy was not just a mechanical failure or a human oversight. It was, as Ravi was shown, a manifestation of a deeper spiritual malaise. The shadowy entities he witnessed thrive where faith falters, where greed and apathy erode the foundations of our systems, where we turn away from the divine light that offers protection and guidance. But Jesus' message to Ravi was clear: it is not too late. We can choose to pray, to love, to rebuild our lives and communities around the truth that transcends our fleeting world. Every sincere prayer, every act of compassion, every heart turned toward God creates a ripple of light that can push back the darkness. This is not a call to blind religion, but to a living, breathing relationship with the Creator who knows and loves us all. As we reflect on Ravi's words, our hearts turn to the 298 souls lost in the crash. Students like Ravi and Samir, dreaming of healing others, doctors who dedicated their lives to saving lives, grandparents carrying the wisdom of generations, children whose laughter will never again fill their homes. Their absence leaves a void that words cannot fill, a pain that lingers in the quiet moments of those who love them. We cannot undo the tragedy, but we can honor their memory by heeding the warning and embracing the hope Ravi has shared. Their lives, though cut short, were not in vain if their loss awakens us to the urgency of the moment. Let us pause now to offer a prayer for those who perished, for their families, and for a world in need of healing. Heavenly Father, Creator of all, whose love knows no bounds, we come before you with heavy hearts, grieving the loss of the 298 souls taken in the Air India flight I-171 tragedy. You know each of them by name, their hopes, their dreams, their laughter, their tears. We entrust them to your eternal embrace, where pain and sorrow are no more, where they rest in the light of your night. Comfort their families whose hearts are shattered by grief. Wrap them in your peace that surpasses understanding. Heal the survivors like Ravi who carry the weight of this loss, and give them strength to bear the message you've entrusted to them. Lord, we pray for our world, so often lost in division, pride, and apathy. Awaken us to the truth Ravi has shared, that our choices shape not only our lives but the spiritual fabric of our existence. Teach us to pray with sincerity, to love with courage, to live with humility. Let the memory of those we've lost inspire us to build communities of light, where your love reigns and the forces of darkness cannot prevail. Guide us, Father, to choose the path of hope, to return to you with our whole hearts, and to honor the fallen by living lives that reflect your truth. We pray this in the name of Jesus Christ, whose love and sacrifice light the way through even the darkest of times. Amen. As we close this chapter, let us carry Ravi's message forward, not as a tale of despair, but as a call to action. The world stands at a crossroads, and the choice is ours. Will we continue down a path of indifference, inviting further tragedy? Or will we turn back, one prayer, one act of love, one surrendered heart at a time? The 298 lives lost in Ahmedabad cry out for us to choose wisely. Their memory demands it. Their legacy depends on it. Let us honor them by choosing light, by choosing faith, by choosing life. The time is now.